The Conjuring 2 is one of those movies that leaves you terrified even after the credits roll. And the scariest part about it isn't some of the jump scares, but rather the fact that it's based on a true story. While there are plenty of made-up elements, the film's primary source of inspiration was the real-life Enfield poltergeist haunting. This paranormal case, which took place in the United Kingdom in the 1970s, involved a family home that was tormented by regular poltergeist activity. In the film, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga played paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were called in to help. And while they didn't actually go to Britain for the case, they did visit the house in Enfield when they returned stateside. But if the Warrens really did go to England to investigate, why did they have to travel back to the US to inspect the home? Or was the house in Connecticut all along? Let's take a look at where The Conjuring 2 is really set. When you hear the word conjuring, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? If your answer was magic, then congratulations, because that's exactly what The Conjuring is all about. It's basically a form of entertainment that relies on deception to make things appear and disappear in thin air. Like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, you get the picture. So while there are plenty of fake haunted houses in the world, there's also a surprising number of real ones. And yes, the latter is exactly what it sounds like. A house that's genuinely haunted. Not only is the paranormal activity in these homes completely genuine, but it's also so bad that the owners have no choice but to call in a paranormal investigator. These professionals will use everything from ghost hunting gadgets to good old-fashioned deduction skills to try and figure out what's going on. If you think this job sounds exciting, then you should probably look into becoming a paranormal investigator yourself. In fact, it's become such a popular career path that there are now entire courses dedicated to teaching people how to track ghosts. So where can you study to be a ghost hunter? Well, it depends on what kind of investigator you want to be. If you prefer the scientific approach, you might want to major in psychology or sociology. After all, most hauntings seem to involve mental phenomena rather than actual ghosts. Meanwhile, if you're more interested in the occult side of things, then theology or religious studies would probably be a better bet. Ultimately, though, experience is the best teacher. So if you really want to become a paranormal investigator, you might as well start haunting houses right away. You never know what you might find. The Warrens were a husband and wife team who investigated paranormal cases around the United States during the late 20th century. They also claimed to have helped solve the Enfield poltergeist case in the 1970s, although their involvement has been disputed by some who believe the story was largely fabricated. Regardless, the Warrens' investigation of the Enfield poltergeist case was the basis for the 2016 film The Conjuring 2. While the film was set in London, England, the house used for filming was actually located in Connecticut, USA. The exterior of the home is particularly noteworthy, as it closely resembles the Hodgson family home, where the Enfield poltergeist case supposedly took place. In addition to the house, other locations used for filming included a farmhouse in Georgia and a hospital in Massachusetts. Now let's talk about what really happened in the Enfield poltergeist case. In the early 1970s, Helen Acton Smith and her 4 children began experiencing strange phenomena in their home in Enfield, England. These included moving objects, shaking beds, and regular shaking of the house. The family also reported seeing the apparition of a little girl in the house, as well as hearing disembodied voices. Eventually, the local priest contacted the Society for Psychical Research, who sent in 2 investigators to examine the case. These were Morris Grass and Anna. However, as time went on, the paranormal activity grew more intense, and the family was forced to move out of their home. Despite this, the SPR continued to investigate, and eventually concluded that the haunting was real. In fact, they believed that there were at least 3 ghosts in the house, one of whom was a little girl named Janet. Unfortunately, not everyone was convinced. Some people claimed that the haunting was nothing more than a hoax perpetrated by Mrs. Smith and her daughter Janet. However, This theory was never proven, and the mystery remains unsolved to this day. Despite the controversy surrounding the case, the Enfield poltergeist has become one of the most famous hauntings of all time. It's been featured in numerous books, TV shows and films, including The Conjuring 2. However, it's important to note that the film takes creative liberties with the story and is not intended to be a faithful adaptation. For example, the character of Valak, the demon who supposedly haunts the house, is not based on any real entity from the Enfield poltergeist case. In fact, Valak is a relatively new addition to the lore of the Conjuring universe. Similarly, the film's depiction of the Warrens' investigation is somewhat fictionalized for dramatic purposes. In reality, the couple's involvement in the case was much more limited. So if you're looking for a faithful retelling of the Enfield poltergeist haunting, you might be disappointed by The Conjuring 2. However, if you're just looking for a scary movie based loosely on a true story, then it's sure to please. Just don't take everything you see on screen at face value. Enfield is a town in North London, England. It was here that the Hodgson family lived in a semi-detached house at 297 Green Lanes. One night in 1977, the family was awoken by loud banging noises coming from inside their home. At first, they assumed that someone was breaking in, but when they investigated, they found nothing. Over the next few weeks, the noises grew more frequent and more intense. Eventually, the family was forced to flee their home as the paranormal activity grew out of control. Now, let's take a look at the house itself. As we mentioned earlier, the house is located at 297 Green Lanes in Enfield. It's a semi-detached property with a red brick facade and white window frames. The house looks unassuming from the street, but it's hiding a dark secret. Behind its closed doors, terrifying paranormal activity was taking place. The haunting at 297 Green Lanes is now known as the Enfield poltergeist case. It's considered to be one of the most famous ghost stories of all time, and has been the subject of numerous books, TV shows, and films. However, it's important to note that the house is not open to the public for ghost tours or investigations. In fact, the current owner has gone to great lengths to keep the property's dark history a secret. They've changed the locks, boarded up the windows, and even put up security cameras to deter intruders. So if you're thinking about visiting 297 Green Lanes to see the infamous haunting for yourself, don't bother. The ghost of Janet Hodgson is not eager to meet new fans. With that said, let's move on to our final question. What happened to the house after the haunting? As we mentioned earlier, the Hodgsons were forced to abandon their home because of the intense paranormal activity. The house stood empty for several years before being demolished in the 1980s. However, the haunting didn't end there. In fact, it only got worse. The rubble from the house was used to build a new property at 497 Green Lanes. But soon after the new residents moved in, they began experiencing strange phenomena. These included moving objects, shaking beds, and regular shaking of the house. In addition, the residents began hearing footsteps in the attic, and doors opening and closing on their own. They also saw the apparition of a little girl in the house, as well as otherworldly figures lurking in the shadows. Eventually, the residents were forced to flee their new home, as the paranormal activity became too much to bear. To this day, nobody knows what happened to the house at 497 Green Lanes. Some believe that the haunting followed the house when it was built, while others claim that there's something sinister lurking in the area. Whatever the truth may be, it's clear that the Enfield poltergeist case is far from over. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out more content. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.